The truest words was from Nietzsche when he said that any man who knows too much can't fit in anywhere. And that's the curse of awareness. Once you start to delve underneath the surface, that's when you realize this whole world, it's not so simple. And you start to notice who people really are in the games they're playing. And that fake confidence, all the ulterior motives. And you realize this whole society, it's built on lies. And people, they're sheep. And once you see that, you can't unsee that. So you try and tell people, but they say to you, no, you're overreacting, you are crazy. So you stop talking, but you're still observing, you're still watching, but you know you don't belong anymore. And it's not because you think you're too good for anyone. No, it's because you've seen too much and you're watching everything, and now you know you can't go back to how it was anymore. And awareness, it isolates you. And it's the price of clarity. Because the crowd say, move away. But then at least you know who you are.
Yeah, folks, the price of awareness. It is quite a price that you pay. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who listen to these radio shows who have similar experiences. You go through that point where you become isolated. Because once you see, you can't unsee. It makes me wonder sometimes whether I even should do the work that I do, helping people see. Sometimes you have to wonder, are you better off not knowing? You know, it becomes so overwhelming sometimes. I've got a friend in Australia who's experiencing something like that at the moment. She's quite young. I've tried to activate her for many years into speaking out and activating people her age. But I've noticed, like, it's interesting, she fails to see the bigger picture. Wants to embark on projects, you know, projects to empower people and inspire people, which is great. But she doesn't understand the limits that people face when starting these sorts of things. Something that might really bring about change is that the government won't let you. Government regulations. It's interesting, she even sent me the UN Agenda 2030 article and said, hey, look, this looks actually really good. What they're saying sounds really good. Why is everybody against this? And I'm trying to explain to her, look, it sounds good, but you've got to read between the lines of what they're actually saying. Universal basic income. Everybody tracked and traced in everything that they do. And that's a lot of what this whole war is all about as well. It's about bringing in this control grid, this control system. You know, the only way they can change the world into what they want is to completely destroy the old world. But they've got to do it in a believable way. And for people who look at Agenda 2030 and, like, agreed, when you look at it and you read it on the website, I mean, it sounds great, but it's not what we want because we know who's implementing it. And you've got to understand the people that are implementing it are again, aware that you can't fix this system. You have to basically bring this system down and destroy it and build a new one from the ashes. There could be ways to do that that people would benefit from. You could re-educate people into the fact that, look, we're going to do this now and this is the way it's going to go and these are going to be the benefits. But no, they just get it into their mind what they want to do, and then they're prepared to just collapse the old world, destroy it and kill billions of people in order to implement their new Agenda 2030. So, you know, as good as it may sound to some people, if they're willing to murder billions of people to put it in place, well, how sound and sane do you think these people really are? And how good do you think their Agenda 2030 is going to be? And imagine being on a universal basic income and having electric cars and electric vehicles and all this sort of shit. Say anything outside the box, they just switch your vehicle off. Switch your life off, basically. All they have to do is cancel you online. Cancel culture, you know. And suddenly, for all intents and purposes, you don't exist anymore. You've got no rights, you've got no data online, so therefore you don't exist. And that's kind of the way they can play it. Just wandering around here showing you a few little other places on Jeff's ranch here. There's this little waterway here which is really beautiful. Just flowing along here. It's really cool, this place. See, he's got his own water. I'm wandering around with the dogs, of course. There's Nacha. Hello, Nacha. You're so sweet, aren't you? Yes, you're just so sweet. So yeah, I'm just wandering around, having a look at a few other places. So, but anyway, yeah, the price of awareness. Sometimes I wonder, really, should I even be doing this, or should I just be sitting back and observing? But then there's lives you can save, isn't it? There's lives you can save by speaking out. That's the thing, you know, when you know that their plan is to kill most of the people on Earth and then have their phoenix rise from the ashes of the fire they created. You know, when you can see it, it becomes a bit of an obligation, a bit of a responsibility, really, to speak out about it. You know, if we had the numbers of people who could really see, then we could make change. And that's the thing, is the people who can really see. And not many people can. There's a lot of people who are aware of the situation. They're aware that the world is run by criminals. They're aware of the pedophile elite. They're aware of the Jewish question, the Freemasons, everything. They're aware of the whole grid. But they can't see the way out. They can't see that they are the way out. I mean, I still get people looking at my shows, and I still get people that I know that say, well, you know, you've been giving me all this information for so long. What's the solution? Why haven't you made change? Well, I haven't made change because I can't do it on my own. We need the strength of numbers. And we need the strength of numbers of people who are actually aware, because the change comes from within. And I know that might sound weird to people, but it does. There's no protest you can mount. There's no one you can vote in or out. It's up to you to realize that the system is a fiction. The system that controls you is just a belief system. The people, the politicians, are all just people like you. They're actually people we employ to manage infrastructure for us. They're not our rulers. Just the people comply with all this shit, and they get scared of legal stuff, and like they're not aware enough to know they're just dealing with people. And all these governments have abdicated any privilege they ever had to govern. And all the Epstein list and all this stuff, we can see this now. You know, authority comes from people's willingness to give their authority away and to not question. And admittedly, it's difficult because the people that you have to question are generally the police, and there's no good trying to question them because they're all brain dead and they all actually like want to hurt you because they enjoy it. That's why I've always said, if you get in a situation with the law, you just get out of their company as quickly as possible. Don't try to deal with police officers. Don't try to argue your rights or your freedom or anything with police officers. Leave that for the court system if it goes that far. Don't try telling any police you're ever sovereign, and don't try ever telling any court that you're sovereign. So I don't even go into a courtroom that way. I don't go into a court making any claims that I'm sovereign. I just go in there as a human being talking to another human being. I'm just man talking to another man sitting at the desk, and I go in there with the attitude that I'm sovereign. No one's made any claims to me that I'm not, and you can't really. I mean, I just go in there to talk to another man sitting at the desk because obviously there's been a misunderstanding. You think I've committed a crime, which means there must be some injured party, but there isn't. So therefore no crime has been committed. And that's just the attitude that I have if I ever have to go into a courtroom. But you can't try to express your freedom on the side of the road with a police officer. You know, we've been the solution to this whole mess the whole time. It's our belief in authority. I mean, I've given the solution to these problems on every show that I did for the last 15, 16 years. When I was doing radio shows, I mean, in the last couple of months or the last couple of years probably, I've been a little bit more focused on news events. But for the first 15 or 16 years that I was on the radio, I was providing solutions with every show because you are the solution. We are the solution. You know, I've managed to breeze through life pretty much, living outside the system the whole time. I mean, I've not had a good life, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was my own worst enemy for many, many years. But I've still managed to live outside of the system pretty much. You know, I've got a passport and a driver's license, but that's about it. You know, I don't vote, I don't pay taxes, I don't fill in tax forms, I don't answer their mails if they send them to me, their letters, because they're never addressed to me. They're addressed to someone whose name is spelled in all capitals, and there is no English word that is spelt in all capitals, including your name. So I've just never answered any of those things, any of those letters or any of those requests, and I've just never complied. I've just had enough to be able to have freedom of movement, like a driver's license and registration and a passport, so I can travel around the place without having to argue with police all the time. And I've managed to get through without ever really participating in the system. And it isn't that I've tried to fight it, or I've tried to establish my sovereignty, or I've tried to make straw man arguments with people or anything like that. It's just because I've known who I am and that I'm just dealing with people, and that no people have any right of ownership over me. And that's the way I approach every situation. I don't have to say anything or prove anything. I just treat people like people in Lakesh. I am another yourself. And I treat police officers and judges and lawyers the same way. I don't view them as people of authority or people that I have to be subservient to. I don't have to do what they say. They have to establish that they have authority over me if they're claiming I have to do what they say. And they can't do that because they have no authority over me unless I choose to give it to them. And it's the same with everybody. And it may be uncomfortable for some people, but that's just how I live my life. And I've managed to just kind of breeze through things by living that way. I don't know. But we're in really strange times now, folks. I haven't even started yet. I probably should. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on. The Gulf War is still happening, the Persian Gulf. Open the strait, close the strait, blockade the strait, then Trump blockades the strait, blockades the blockade, and then Iran decides they will blockade Trump's blockade, and then suddenly Trump declares the strait is fully open and will never be closed again, and then within 24 hours it's closed again. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Israel is still bombing South Lebanon, destroyed the entire village of Bint Jabiel, destroyed it with bombs and just wiped out an entire village. It's like a 4,000 or 5,000 year old village. Just insane, folks, and happening while Trump is trying to secure a ceasefire, okay? And Trump's trying to secure a ceasefire because he realizes that it's the end of the petrodollar. What he's done has destroyed the petrodollar. What, 17 bases down in the Persian Gulf now, US bases that are gone. Nobody wants to trade in the petrodollar anymore. The United States has lost its reputation on the world stage. Everybody is absolutely dumbfounded at what Trump has done, crashing the world economy. There's all sorts of talk about how he is doing this so that everyone's going to buy oil off the United States. If he is doing that, that is the most evil thing you could possibly do. Like destroy all these countries all over the world just so you can corner the market. But when they announced the strait closing and opening and all this sort of stuff that's been going on again in the last couple of days, of course, there was a massive amount of insider trading happen as well. I mean, Trump has been making billions and billions of dollars out of this, folks, while this whole war has been going on. All the people in the White House who have insider knowledge have been making a killing on all of these strait openings and closures. It's all been done by design. And there's so much going on. So much going on. Again, I really wonder whether Israel is going to survive in its form that it's in now. I think they're more likely going to try to move to Ukraine and insinuate themselves over the new Chinese system that's going to come online, the new Belt and Road system. See, all of this stuff, China's been setting up this Belt and Road trading system for quite a while now, which will be the new Silk Road. And this has been going on for years. They've been setting this up. And all the things that's happening in the Middle East now is perfect timing for this Belt and Road system to come online and for the Jews to be able to insinuate themselves into it via their possession of Ukraine. They've been buying up massive amounts of land in Ukraine, buying up massive amounts of land in Argentina. And they've been preparing themselves for this for years. They've always had deep ties to Ukraine. They've been trafficking people from Ukraine. A couple of shows ago, 1 or 2 shows ago, I mentioned that I would suggest the Jewish gene that we think is their genealogy, their DNA. Many people will say, well, they do have their own specific DNA. Well, this could be Jewish DNA, or it could be Ashkenazi DNA, as some people say, or it could be Khazarian DNA, or it could even be Neanderthal DNA, as I've been saying. I've been suggesting this for quite a while now, and I've found that there's a lot of other people that are actually going down that rabbit hole as well and thinking that, yes, there's a good possibility that the Jews are actually Neanderthal, and that the ancient war between Neanderthal and Homo sapiens never actually finished. Homo sapiens just became unaware that this war was still going on. But it has been going on for centuries, apparently. Well, it would seem that way anyway. But I suggested on a show, one of the reasons we see so many beautiful Jewish women, and we do see a lot of beautiful Israeli women, is because they have been trafficking women from Russia and Ukraine and Eastern Europe into Israel and using them in the sex industry. And that a lot of the women that are born in Israel are born from these Ukrainian women, like Ukrainian stock, Russian Ukrainian stock. Now there's even been a rabbi come out and say, yes, this is what we've done.
Thousands of Ukrainian girls was imported to Israel to work in prostitutions. In every block you have an apartment of Russian prostitute. We call it Russian because we do not know to tell the difference between Russian and Ukraine. They both look alike and they both speak Russian. We don't know to tell the difference. I guess the Russians, if they hear... So in other words, for us the Israelis, we don't really know the difference. We don't know. They published in Ukraine, if you would like to come in and work in Israel in cleaning or au pair, watching children, all kinds of jobs like this, you're going to make $4,000 a month. Wow, $4,000 in Ukraine? Better than a lawyer. It's a lot of money. So right away they arrived to Israel, and as soon as they arrived, these gangsters, when some of them themselves are Russian or Ukrainians, they do it for their own people. And they take their passport and say, give us your passport, we need to make you the visa and the papers, and that's it. From the minute they took their passport, they take them to some place, they bury them in a basement for 20 years. They don't see the daylight. They put these guys with guns, and they force them to be slaves over there. Some of them are married. They only came for 2-3 months to make... They thought maybe they're going to bring back $10,000 and they can live 2 years after that. And their husband and wife and their children do not know where she disappeared. And that's...
So that's interesting, isn't it? They're actually admitting that they have been trafficking Ukrainian women and Russian women. And it's been going on for a long time. So all this sort of stuff is coming out now. They're so sick, folks. It's such a sick and an evil culture. You know, just the treatment of the Palestinian prisoners, the fact that they've got 10,000 prisoners on death row at the moment. And like Ben Gvir is actually, he gets emotional about it. He gets like all warm and fuzzy about it, and he's wearing a little pin, like a little gold pin. You know, they had the little gold pins with the yellow ribbons on them for the hostages. He's wearing a little gold pin with a noose on it as a warming, endearing thing, because he feels so warm and fuzzy about being able to execute the Palestinians. He's saying, we've already taken everything from them. Now we get to take their lives from them. And it's just so warming to experience this. The guy is sick. He is such a sick man, and the Israeli society itself is such a sick culture. You know, they got a boy, a Palestinian boy, and arrested him, and he was guilty of no crime. They just arrested a kid off the street. They took him to a military jail, and they locked him in an isolation cell for 4 years.
سعادة العدو وقت يعني شيء قانوني يعني اسرائيل هو العدو اوكي وانت ساعدت هذا ضد العدو اوكي يعني العرب والفلسطينيين ساعدوا ضد العدو الاسرائيلي صهيوني عشان شو تعمل؟ عشان شو تعمل؟ شو كمان كنت تعملوا له كمان مرات؟ بتذكر ها؟ نحن كمان مثل مرة؟ مين هذا الله الخرا اللي حكى لنا مش عارف تقريبي؟ هو ما كان وراي هو ما كان وراي يا كذاب هو ما كان وراي لا تعدوا لا تعدوا لا تعدوا
4 years, an innocent child in an isolation cell, being screamed at by Israeli soldiers. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know what they're accusing him of, and he broke down in the courtroom there, so they threw him in an isolation cell for 4 years. If you go and look at any type of human rights stuff, they'll tell you that like 10 days or something is the maximum anyone should be in solitary confinement. This kid was put in there for 4 years. He came out of schizophrenic personality disorders, just completely fucked up. An innocent child. Who does that? Who even thinks about doing that? I would love to meet that prison guard who was screaming at that kid. I would punch his fucking head in. I would hospitalize the guy, and then as soon as he got out of hospital, I would hospitalize him again. And then anytime I saw him in the street, I would hospitalize him again. People who are involved in this type of torment of children, I would love to meet them. I would kick the living shit out of them every single time I saw them for the rest of their lives, just because it's the right thing to do. Yeah, they say you can't blame Israel because not all Jews are like this. I agree, not all Jews are like this. But if you're not like this, why do you call yourself a Jew? Because it's a supremacist ideology. The whole concept of being a Jew is that they want to take over the world, and they freely admit that.
Following is a letter from Rabbi Baruch Levy to Karl Marx, published in La Revue de Paris on page 574, dated June 1st, 1928. It's breathtaking in its arrogance and demonic prescience. I'll be back after this vile Jew supremacist diatribe.
The Jewish people as a whole will be its own Messiah. It will attain world dominion by the dissolution of other races, by the abolition of frontiers, the annihilation of monarchy, and by the establishment of a world republic in which the Jews will everywhere exercise the privilege of citizenship. In this new world order, the children of Israel will furnish all the leaders without encountering opposition. The governments of the different peoples forming the world republic will fall without difficulty into the hands of the Jews. It will then be possible for the Jewish rulers to abolish private property and everywhere to make use of the resources of the state. Thus will the promise of the Talmud be fulfilled, in which is said that when the Messianic time has come, the Jews will have all the property of the whole world in their hands.
Ask yourself, what kind of people dream of oppressing all mankind to dominate and control everyone and everything? Jews actually believe this demonic supremacist crap. It's going to get them killed in a real final solution. Should we tell them what awaits them? That's our prophecy.
Yeah, they admit it, folks, but the world is beginning to see it now. The whole world is actually turning against Israel. And the thing is, sure, not all Jews are like this, but 84% of people in Israel totally support what's going on with the Palestinians. And if you don't support it, well, what the fuck are you doing in Israel? What the fuck are you still calling yourself a Jew for? Because it's a faith, it's not a race. All based on this Holocaust bullshit. It was Holocaust Memorial Day the other day. They banned me from X. I reposted a comment that I'd posted in February about Hamas. Someone asked the question, how come the people in Gaza can afford rockets when they can't afford food? And I made quite a long reply explaining that these are just fertilizer stuffed in water pipes that are shot over the wall by Hamas agents whenever Israel needs an excuse to test new weapons on live targets. And so they banned me for 30 days for saying that. Good old free speech X. But whenever they ban me, something big tends to happen with Israel. So be interesting to see. Okay, no problema. Whenever they ban me on X, something big tends to happen with Israel. So who knows what's going to happen over the next 30 days. I've seen all sorts of horrendous stuff coming out about Palestine that I'd love to share. But of course I can't because I'm banned for 30 days. But yeah, all this shit they've done, I mean, the whole society is based on lies. The lie of the Holocaust.
How many Jews died at Auschwitz? Less than 20,000. In all these satellite camps, including Auschwitz, and they died not of gassing. There was not a single gas chamber in all of National Socialist dominated Europe, because the killing method of executing whether criminal spies, traitors, saboteurs, whatever, in Europe, in every Gentile country in Europe, never ever historically was gas. The only nation that ever had this fetish of gas chambers, which is the most complicated, idiotic and expensive way of killing people, was the United States.
Yeah, it's all lies, folks. And the lie of freedom in our societies, because these are all run by the same people. Even the whole internet, you know, internet, international net, the World Wide Web, to catch things. You know, Jews don't surf the net. Most Jews don't actually surf the net on their cell phones. They do it from computers at home. They carry around kosher phones. Did you know you can get kosher phones? You can actually get them all over Brooklyn. There's stores that'll sell you kosher phones where all of the tracking and surveillance features can be easily disabled.
This is not an ordinary flip phone. It's a special phone called a kosher phone. Kosher phones are phones that some Hasidic Jews use that are specifically modified to put certain limits on the device. Why? Well, many religious Jews try to use the internet with limits. They're not against the internet, but it's very different to have the internet on you all the time. So people will try not to have the internet on their mobile phones, or only at the office, or only on a desktop. There are many reasons for the use of kosher phones, including to make sure that the adults are present for the children and not distracted by the internet. This kosher phone is sold at a kiosk in Brooklyn, and its browser is disabled. These phones can be seen all over Brooklyn.
There are more kosher technology products you can spot, like kosher cameras without cloud-based features, kosher MP3 players without iTunes or any other web access, kosher GPSs that are standalone devices of Google Maps and Waze, so you don't need a smartphone, but you can benefit from the technology, kosher Game Boys, which don't have violent games, even kosher Teslas with the internet jailbroken. The children usually don't even have kosher phones, although sometimes they do, so they spend hours and hours playing together.
Reveal forbidden knowledge and hidden plans with professional resources.
Interesting, huh? You can buy kosher food in stores. You can get the kosher meals on aircraft that don't contain all the toxins and shit they put in the other foods. Why does all this stuff exist? It isn't just a religious thing. It's because the Jews are poisoning and killing and surveilling and tracking and tracing everybody else, but they don't want all this stuff done to them. They don't want to eat the same food that they feed the Goyim because it's all poison. They don't want to take the same medicines. They don't want to do any of the stuff that the Goy do because it's all poison. That's why all this kosher stuff exists. It's got nothing to do with religious tradition or anything like that, you know? I mean, I really miss the days of no internet. I really do. I mean, it's great having the internet. It's made the world smaller, but it's actually made people more isolated as well. I mean, it's given us more connectivity, but it's all done virtually. People lose their life skills. People don't even know how to talk to people anymore. Half the time they meet people online and they don't want to actually go and meet them in real life because they're not going to look the way they did when they had the TikTok filter on their face. It moves us into a false reality while we're living in reality here, and we don't get to see it and we don't get to experience ourselves properly because we're constrained by all of this online shit. I mean, I really miss the days of no internet. I miss the days when kids would go out and play in the street, and if I wanted to see someone, I would have to get in my car and drive over to their house and see them, and see if they were home. Oh, they're not home. Okay, well, I'll leave a note on your door and come back later. Didn't have cell phones, didn't have any of that sort of stuff. I miss those days. Even though the internet, I mean, it's been great. I've been able to speak to all you people. I've got to travel all over the world and meet people in an amazing amount of places, do an amazing amount of things because of the internet. And it could be there for that. It could just be there for connectivity. It could be there for information sharing. But all the filters and all the AI and all the stuff and all the direction it's gone in, it's just so far removed from humanity. It's kind of scary. And the thing is that so many kids now have grown up into this. Like anybody born after 2000, they don't know a world without the internet. Anybody born after 95, really, they don't know a world without the internet. I mean, I remember when the first mobile phone came out, it was like a fucking brick. You used to have to carry it around in a bag. It was like a house brick. And it had a handset with a thing you used to pick up and use it like a normal telephone. I had to have one once because I was a manager at an audio install company. I was a project manager and I needed a mobile phone so my boss could contact me all day. I had to carry one of these things around. It was horrible. But I remember world before that and what it was like. It was so much better. It was just so much better without this digital barrier between us and reality. And now that it's there, not a lot of people know how to operate without it. Like even now, like if I wanted to go somewhere or travel somewhere, I mean, I could just go online, book a ticket. Great. If the internet wasn't there, I'd have to find a car, go in and find a travel agent, sit down with them for a couple of hours and get them to sort out flights for me and nothing would be changeable and blah, blah, blah. Sure, it'd be a lot more inconvenient. There's a lot of convenience that comes with it. Like I said, it would be good to have it for all that sort of stuff. But not working from home and replacing us with AI. I mean, AI is just going forward in leaps and bounds, folks. And now they're even putting out stuff in Australia. They want people to work from home. They're putting advertising for phone operators. Someone sent me an email yesterday and they're looking for people to work in call forwarding because a lot of people are going to be working from home. That's what all this is about. That's what a lot of all this energy stuff is about. There was another fire in Australia the other day as well, the Viva refinery, because Australia only has 2 oil refineries in Australia. We had like about 15 or 20 oil refineries we had. But over the last 20 years, they've all been closed down by the parasites in our government and all of this stuff's been moved offshore. So now we've got 2 refineries. We've got one, I think, in Brisbane or Queensland somewhere, and we've got another one in Melbourne in Geelong, which is the Viva refinery. And there was a fire at the Viva refinery the other day, right on cue. Interestingly, I was told by people who lived there, and I was actually sent a couple of screenshots from people saying, well, actually, the fire didn't happen at the part of the plant where they actually process the petroleum, where they process the oil and refine the oil. It happened at another part of the plant, and most of what you're seeing on the video footage of it is a warehouse behind the plant that is on fire. That's what I was told by someone. And they posted a picture of the plant a couple of days later, or a day later, and there was no smoke coming out of it. So it may seem like a little bit of a staged event. Of course, immediately the government said, well, they're going to have to implement their 9-point plan and they're going to have to restrict people's travel and blah, blah, blah. This is all designed to happen, folks, all of it. I mean, I even wonder, I mentioned on the last report, who is Iran firing missiles at? Why is Israel still able to bomb Lebanon? Why is Israel still able to bomb Iran? I mean, if they're sending in so many missiles, and Iranians as well, I mean, when they had the war with Iraq, they didn't want to send missiles into Iraq because they didn't have an accurate enough missile system. And they didn't want to be sending missiles into populated areas because they don't want to kill civilians, because it's against Islam to kill women and children, even in war. So they take special care not to target civilians because it's part of their religion. Everyone will question that and say, oh, that's all bullshit, Max. Well, no, it's actually not. What you're believing is bullshit that's been fed to you by the Zionists. It's the Zionists who always attack civilians. That's what they do. They claim they don't, but they do. The Iranians claim that they don't attack civilians, and they actually don't. That's why they develop such accurate missile systems, so they can hit their target and not kill women and children around the target. So bearing that in mind, why are there any Israeli air bases still functional? I said, what, how many waves of missiles though? It was like 106 on my last video. I haven't checked lately to see what they're up to now. I mean, it stops, it's on and it's off and it's on and it's off. And Israel won't allow any ceasefire. Even when Trump said that he wants a ceasefire and he wants Israel to honour this for 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Just a 2-week ceasefire, temporary pause so they can regroup. And Israel just won't honour it because Israel wants to kill lots of people. And Israel's just throwing Trump under the bus. They're basically saying, look, we don't give a shit now. You've served your purpose. You kickstarted this war that we've been trying to get kickstarted since the mid-90s. You did it for us. It's going to destroy America because that's the plan. And we don't care about you anymore, so fuck off. We're going to keep firing. Any truce that America makes with Iran doesn't include Israel. We're going to keep bombing Iran and we're going to keep bombing Lebanon because we're fighting for world freedom and you're chickening out. Yeah, they're not. They're fighting for world domination. And they're basically just throwing Trump under the bus. But it's a good indication that any type of ceasefire just isn't going to work anyway because Israel simply isn't going to let it happen. Israel's been wanting this war for years and it's going to keep going. And the goal is to completely destroy the supply chain. That's something that I've been mentioning to people like since the start of COVID. And I've still got at least 2 years worth of food stashed in my pantry back in Australia that my landlord can use, and I'm sure he's going to be glad that's there in a few weeks, because this is going to affect everybody. That's one of the reasons we do what we do, and I do what I do, is to help people prepare for this situation. We've always known it's going to come, and here it is. You know, and you don't want to be negative and bringing negative information to people and scaring people. But isn't it better to be prepared for these situations when they arise, should they arise, and they absolutely are arising? Isn't it better to be prepared for this sort of stuff than to just ignore it? I think it's going to go away. Like with my friend who wanted me to help her put some of these retreats and things together. I'm like, well, there's no point doing a self-help retreat if it's focused on, you know, breathing and sound healing and all this sort of stuff, this hippie stuff that people do, which is all great. You know, breathing stuff is great, sound healing is great, but hey, the world's run by criminals and they want to kill you and they're implementing a plan to make that happen right now. Shouldn't we put some focus on that? Then we won't have to get permission to do our retreats, or we won't have to get permission to do anything. We can actually install a proper system by identifying that this one is run by criminals. Shouldn't we focus on that? I mean, if we could have focused on that 20 years ago when I was telling people we need to focus on that, we wouldn't be in this situation now. And now here we are. Well, what do? You've got to just tell people, be prepared. Be prepared. Get out of the cities. If you're in a city, get out of the cities, because there's no real way to turn this around now. The fuel trucks have stopped. The fuel ships have stopped. Big oil tankers, they're really, really slow, folks. You know, the Australian Prime Minister went out the other day, went to like 3 different countries looking for fuel. He managed to secure 100 million litres of fuel for Australia, which is 1 day supply for Australia. And Australia's going to be out of fuel very, very soon. So who's going to bring the coal to the coal-fired power stations to keep the electricity going? Who's going to supply the garages, the petrol stations? So many now, hundreds of them in Australia, have no fuel. How's any of this going to work? How are people going to be able to store food if their freezers don't work because there's no electricity, because there's no fuel to get coal to the power stations? It's such a huge knock-on effect. And the government is going to use this to try to say, well, you know, we're here for you. We've put all of our provisions in place and we've got all of our emergency plan in place. You've got to understand they created the emergency plan because they also created the problem. All of this has been done by design. The reason Australia is running out of fuel is because the politicians have bled the country dry. Since Australia incorporated in 1973, what have you seen? You've seen a close down of all Australian fuel production. They've sold it all to offshore companies. Golden Fleece service stations we used to have in Australia all closed down. We don't even make cars anymore in Australia. We don't do anything in Australia because the politicians, when they incorporated in 1973, they came into power and they sold off everything and they bled you dry. One of the highest costs of livings in the world. My little nephew getting charged $1,200 a week for a little 2-bedroom shitbox apartment in the backwaters of Mermaid Beach on the Gold Coast. Crazy. Because the politicians have bled you dry. Now they're going to offer you their solution? No, the solution is for you people to fuck off. That's the solution, because you are the guys who created the problem. We're not interested in your solutions. We have our own solution, and that is for you guys to fuck off and take your brain-dead, armour-clad fucking police force with you. That's what needs to happen. Now, a couple of years ago through COVID, there was like 1.5 million people marched to Parliament House and gathered outside Parliament House. It was such an opportunity for change. But you had freaking morons there, some of the leaders of the so-called resistance in Australia, telling people, okay, well, now you're here, go home. Go home. We've done it. We've made our statement. Go home. No, you shouldn't have gone home. You should have stayed there and called the politicians to come out and explain themselves. And if they can't, then to fuck off. We're going to express a loss of confidence in your government and we're going to replace you. We'll hold elections from the crowd right here, right now, and you people out. That's what should have happened. But that was diffused by the so-called leaders of the resistance in Australia. Such a fucking scam, folks. That was a real opportunity we had there and we lost it. So now here we are. You know, back then it was easy to not comply with lockdowns and not comply with all their guidelines because you had a choice. COVID was a scam, the world was the way it's always been, and you had a choice. Like, I never complied with anything. I never put a mask on. When they told me I couldn't leave the country, I left. I did everything against what they said. When they told me I couldn't go more than 5 kilometres from home, I started driving 10 kilometres or 10 miles from home and doing walks in the forest and all the places they told me I couldn't go. But with this one, well, if there's no fuel and there's no electricity, how do you not comply? And Australia has been severely set up for a fall. I'm so concerned for my friends and family there. I really am, and I urge you to get whatever you need done now, and get the fuck out of the cities. Get yourself set up somewhere. I've said to my son quite a few times, if you want to leave and come over here, then anytime. But it needs to be done soon because you're not going to get any flights out of the country soon because they're going to claim there's no jet fuel. When jet fuel is such a fucking scam. Jet fuel is such a scam, folks. They only need enough jet fuel for takeoff and landings. The engines run themselves off compressed air. There is no fuel stored in the wings, all that shit that they tell you. You can't possibly put 300 tons of fuel in aircraft wings and expect the thing to fly. They had these one little fuel truck show up and they spent 5 minutes pumping fuel into the airline. You're telling me they're putting 300 tons worth of fuel in there? It's about 16 tankers, 16 oil tankers or petrol tankers you'd have to have out there pumping all that fuel into the wings. It's all bullshit, folks. They fly on compressed air. But they're saying there's an $800 surcharge on fuel to get out of Australia and all sorts of stuff. And soon there's not going to be any jet fuel. They're saying it's a jet fuel shortage. Jet fuel is just kerosene with an oxygen additive to make it a little bit more spiky. And that's just used for takeoffs and landings, yeah. But anyway. But things are going to go nuts. Things are going to go completely crazy. And again, I wonder why Israel is still able to attack anything. What sort of a role is Iran really playing in this? As I was saying before, I can understand they don't want to hit civilians, so Tel Aviv is still standing. But why are any military bases still working? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And if they have destroyed all of the bases, then who is it who's actually bombing Lebanon? Is the US doing it from ships? I have to wonder. I mean, there's so much deception with all of this, folks. So much deception with all of it. And I can't help thinking that the only possible outcomes of this whole scenario is the destruction of the United States, the destruction of the State of Israel, and the destruction of the world supply chain. Even if the players didn't know that's what they were doing. Like, I don't think Trump knew what he was doing. I think he thought he was really serving his Jewish masters and he was going to be the Goyim Messiah and he was going to maintain his friendship with Bibi and all that sort of stuff. And he wasn't going to get hung out to dry the way he has been. And he looks so old now, like he's really aged in the last month. He just doesn't look well at all. I don't see him smile much anymore. He always had that kind of Trumpy look about him. Now he just looks like he's angry and pissed off all the time because he knows they did the wrong thing by him. They convinced him to go into this war that can't be won. And he's so fucking stupid and centered in his own ego. He's a malignant narcissist. He can't bear hearing anything bad about himself. And what all this is about, it isn't about making America great again. It's making him famous. It's him wanting to be remembered as the good guy. You know, the best president ever and the best this and the best that, and no one can do anything the way I can do it. That sort of an attitude. So he was played. The people of Iran are also being played. You know, the way they're destroying all of the energy structure in the Middle East, this is all playing into the Zionist agenda, whether they realize that or not. It's all playing into the same agenda. And the Jews are just taking over the world. They've got columns everywhere, fifth columns in all countries, thousands of them in upstate New York, breeding in that village Kiryas Yoel. And again in Lakewood, New Jersey, you've got these huge Jewish enclaves being set up. The same in Ukraine, the same in Argentina. It's happening here in Mexico as well. There's a huge Jewish enclave being set up in Baja, in Mexico. And I've mentioned before, there are Jewish enclaves being set up even in Bonfil, just outside Acapulco where I used to live, near the Secret Garden. So, yeah, they're taking over the world, folks. There's far more than 15 million of these people. Everything they tell you is bullshit. All of it. And so, yeah, what do you do? Like I said, I can't see any real way of stopping what's coming. All I can suggest people do from this point, I mean, sure, spread awareness, but if people aren't awake now, then, you know, what's the point? I mean, how much can you try to wake these people up now? If they still believe in Trump and they still can't see the agenda, well, it's got to the point that, well, you've just got to look after yourself, folks. You really do. That's the most important thing. And you've got to be able to keep this knowledge and make sure this knowledge comes through to the other side of this reset. Admittedly, they did that on the last reset as well. And the people who did have the knowledge were, of course, put into insane asylums. You ever questioned the insane asylums, folks? I've asked questions about the insane asylums for years. Some of these structures are absolutely huge, huge palatial structures. Are we to believe that these things were simply built to put lunatics in?
What if the insane asylums from the 1800s weren't built for insane people at all? Think about it. People always say, if there was a reset, wouldn't everyone have known? But what if the people who did know were labeled insane? In the 1800s, all across America and Canada, massive insane asylums started appearing. Huge buildings, massive stone structures, some of the biggest buildings in the entire country at the time. But here's the strange part. Many of these cities were just being founded. So where did all of these insane people come from? And how did they know there would be so many of them that they built entire castle-like complexes to hold them? Look at the Central Lunatic Asylum in Ohio. It looks more like a fortress than a hospital. Look at the Columbia State Hospital. At one point, it was the largest building in the United States. And then there's St. Vincent Hospital in St. Louis. They say it was built in 1 year. 1 year in the 1800s. With that architecture. So you have to ask yourself, were these buildings really made to treat the insane? Or were they made to silence people who remembered a world that no longer existed?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I disagree with him in as much as I don't think they were built to put lunatics in. I think they were already there. They were just repurposed as insane asylums. They all come from the previous age. I don't think they were built as insane asylums. These are palatial, they're probably hotels or whatever, you know. But that's what they tend to do. Is that what's going to happen again? Though I think this may be one of the last resets they need to do, because they've already wiped out so much of the population. I mean, there isn't 8 billion people on Earth. There's probably 3 billion people on Earth. There's probably around about 100 million Jews on Earth at least. Far more than 15 million. And after this reset, I mean, I think this is one of the reasons they put the graphene everywhere, they put the 5G towers everywhere, because a lot of this stuff will remain and they can activate it all after the reset. The purpose of this reset now, the purpose of this war, is to have a mass cull and have many people die of starvation. What they did with the potato famine in Ireland, which wasn't a potato famine, it was just the Irish having all their food stolen by England. So, you know, all these sorts of things are contrived, and I think that's the goal, folks, is mainly to depopulate the world. And then, of course, they're going to need their smart currency and their smart grid, and they're going to need all this stuff. And putting the graphene in people and being able to track and trace them with the 5G system, I think all of this is all part and parcel to the same agenda, folks. And like I said, I can't see any real way to stop it now. So my advice to everybody is to weather the storm, find a way through. And the only way you can find a way through is to remove all stake in the outcome. Throw yourself to the wind and ride it. Face infinity without flinching. Just do what needs to be done. With serenity. Odds and circumstances that were not included in your calculations. And simply face it with serenity. Step onto that path and do what needs to be done. Yeah. Interesting though. Interesting show. I was saying before, I missed the world prior to the internet. Well, I think we're going to have something vastly different from that from here on. Everything is going to change in the next 6 months. I wonder if I'll be able to get to Europe. I'd love to be able to get to Europe and see my friends later in the year. If I can't, well, I can't. In all honesty, I really can't see how I'm going to be able to, not unless the Strait of Hormuz comes online straight away and the fuel supply starts pumping straight away. But even if the Strait of Hormuz does open, most of the fuel production sites in the Middle East have been wiped out and destroyed. So some of them are going to take months, years, and possibly even decades to come back online. Apparently people are fleeing Dubai in droves as well, because they just can't function there anymore. Without the fuel supply, the cost of everything's gone ridiculous. And that whole area of the world looks like it's just going to fall apart. I mean, most of the cities there are kind of prefab, like Dubai. Shouldn't really even be there. But it was constructed and it was put there. And it really, if you want to look at it, modern technology and stuff, it's quite a miracle of technology. Not my type of city. Too hot, too plastic, but still pretty good effort to have constructed it there. But it doesn't look like it's going to last. And yeah, the world's changing. So what can I say? Be prepared, folks. Mad Max, you know? Get in touch with your life skills. Get in touch with your life skills. Maybe even go out now, find a little cave somewhere, or somewhere in the forest, or somewhere up on a cliff where you can have an overview of the world, and just find somewhere that you can retreat to. I know some people in Australia who've got a cool little retreat they've got built up a mountain behind their house that nobody knows is there. That's going to be a good spot to have. There's places around the Gold Coast, Springbrook, Tullabudgera Valley, there's caves and stuff out there. Binnaburra. There is caves where people could live. There are some pretty good forests and jungles around the border ranges in Queensland and New South Wales. If you wanted to go that way, there are places you could be where there's plenty of water and there's plenty of wild food you can eat. I suggest you go and find places like that. Just get ready, just in case you need to retreat to somewhere like that. Have somewhere to retreat to, somewhere that you know, somewhere you're a little bit familiar with, somewhere where if worse comes to worse, you've got somewhere that you can get out of the sea. I think that would be very advisable. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, folks. Bit of a rambling show today. I don't have a lot really of information to bring you. I mean, the world is the same as what it was on the last radio show. The strait's open, the strait's closed, the strait's open, the strait's closed. Trump is still being a dipshit. Israel's still murdering everybody, still murdering Palestinian prisoners, and most of the world is still asleep. So what can I say? Same old, same old. But we are definitely heading into a huge wake-up experience for a lot of these people. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Same thank yous I always give. Thank you to the people who send me so many kind emails. One guy sent me a letter, an email with a whole bunch of attachments, got 15 or 17 attachments about affidavits and stuff like this that we can do. This is all stuff I looked at years ago, brother, and I think it's all a good idea. It would have been a good idea 10 years ago. But in the situation we're in now, I think it's not going to change anything. And I'm of the opinion that I don't need to fill out any affidavits or anything like that to show that I'm sovereign. If someone's claiming I'm not sovereign, they need to show me how. They're making the claim. I never claim I'm sovereign. I just speak to people in Lakesh. I'm another yourself, and I speak to people as people. If I'm speaking to a judge, I don't care if he's a judge and sitting at a desk, he's just a guy I'm speaking to. The same with anybody that I'm speaking to. I don't view them by their uniform or by whatever office they claim to hold. It's just another person that I'm speaking to. So I can appreciate what you're doing, and I think there's value in it. It's a great learning curve, but at this point of the game, where we are facing a massive global crisis with the shutdown of the supply chain and possibly the loss of electricity and massive losses of life looming on the horizon, that it's kind of, it's a moot point, a lot of this stuff. Though I really do appreciate what you've done, and I do appreciate what you've sent me, and I do appreciate your efforts to try to make a difference. And look, I can share your website and any of that sort of stuff for people who want to go and look at this, but I think we're kind of past that point. Well, I am anyway. I mean, like I've said, there's a higher harmonic. There's a higher harmonic. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I don't need to prove my sovereignty. I don't need to go and argue with the judge. I don't need to argue with the police officer. I don't need to do any of that stuff. They need to show me that they've got jurisdiction. And if I've committed no crime, then how can they have jurisdiction over me? because I'm not going to give it to them. That's the way I approach all that stuff. But thank you for the emails anyway. And thank you to all the people who send me kind comments. And thank you to anybody who's ever made a contribution. I know it's very difficult at the moment, but it has been pretty slim with the contributions as well. And I can understand a lot of people don't have too much they can share at the moment. And really, neither do I. But if you can, I would really appreciate it. And thank you to those people who have and who do continue to do so. But anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it there for now. I will look forward to speaking to you again soon as more information comes to hand. It will be within the next few days, probably. Then I'm probably going to be away for probably maybe 4 or 5 days. So I'll bring you another one probably on Monday or so. If I don't bring you one on Monday or Tuesday, then probably you won't be hearing from me until the following weekend. But I'll just see what happens over the next couple of days. And I'll bring you another report soon. Please take very good care until then, folks. Hope for the best, but please do prepare for the worst. And I think you'll be glad that you did. In Lakesh. Hey, little Nacho. Hey, little Nacho. What are you doing? Hey, Soul. Hey, Nacho, ven. Nacho. Little Nacho.
Listen here. They came creeping through the desert night. But they didn't know we were ready. They're rolling under moonlight, engines low and mean. Seeking birdies in the darkness, choppers on the scene. Talking about a heist, yeah, just like to buzz before. They came for the glow, but they had to go. Tried to break us down. We stood our ground. You ready? I'm safe, staying flawed until all the wreckage smolders low. You ready? I'm safe. We've been proud as the desert winds blow. Secret defense on the ground, we hold the line. The whole crew dancing, the breeze so fine. You ready? I'm safe, singing like you ready? I'm safe. Yeah. You ready? I'm safe. You tried it once, won't try it twice. Heard you're strong under the rising sun. You ready? I'm safe, baby.